We want to pull the data in from the backend by calling these routes, and we are going to call the data from these views right here. So we are going to get the products and the actual product or the individual product from our API. So it's not real data, but at least it's coming from the backend. And so for this, I am going to go ahead and open up a new terminal, and I'm going to leave my Django server on. So we'll need both of these servers on, and I'm going to cd into front end, and from front end I want to go ahead and import Axios. So you can use fetch, you can use Axios for this, but this is what I am going to be using, and we'll just do npm install, and we'll just do uh, Axios. So now that we have Axios installed, let's start up our server, and we will want to import this into our home page first. So we want to be able to actually load in our products from the backend. So while this is loading, this data is still from that static file from the front end, and we want to change that right now. So let's go into our front end folder, and we'll just go ahead and go into screens and home screens, and we'll just import Axios. So we'll do Axios here, and this is going to be from Axios. So we got the import, and we are also going to use use state and use effects. So we are actually going to be creating our state right now. So use use state right now, and use effect also we'll use in a second here, use effect. So the first thing I want to do is actually set our state. So I am going to remove products here, and we no longer want this import, and that's going to give us an here, because we are looping through our products. So we will create products in our state right here. So our state will be called products. So now we can use it down here, and we also need a way to update that. So we are going to use set products. So if you don't understand how use state works, this is how we set the state, and then we need a method to actually update the state. So once we set it, we just need to do use state, and then we need to give it the original value. So right now products will just be an empty array. So whatever we put in here is going to be the original value. So we need to make an API call, and then use this set products value to update this array. So right now if I refresh this, we are going to have just an empty page here, because we are looping through that products array, but now we don't have any products here because we haven't loaded anything in. So for this we are going to use effect. So use effect gets loaded every single time, or it gets triggered every single time the component loads, or when a state attribute or one of the state values gets updated. So what we are going to do is we want use effect to get triggered when the component first loads. So we are going to use an arrow function here, and at the end of use effect we are going to put this empty array, because we only want this to update when the component loads, not when an actual state element gets updated. So we will you will see how we use this later. I will recommend looking up a few videos on how this works, but for now this is all we need. And in here we are going to start using axios to make the call load in data and then actually update this. So let's just see this in action real quick. So we'll just do console and console.log, and we'll just say use effect. So this that is triggered, use effect triggered. So now if I go to my page here, we can see that once the component is loaded, use effect is triggered, and this is where we are going to make that call. So let's go ahead and get rid of this, and let's use axios now. So there is a few ways we can use axios. We can just do axios and then set the method, which is going to be a get method, and in the get method we are going to pass in the URL, which is going to go into the products page, and later on we will actually change it to something like that. But until I configure everything, we are just going to hard code that, and then this will return back a promise. In that promise we will get the response, and we can set products. So instead of using the do then syntax, we are going to use async await. So this is going to be return a promise, so we'll add in a wait right here, and we want to get back that response. So we'll just say const, and what we are going to do is we are going to destructure that response. So we will set the variable to data here, we'll destructure that, and in order to use a wait we need to wrap this call right here inside of an in function. So you can see we are getting an error here. So inside of use effect, let's create a function, and we are just going to call this function. So function fetch products, and we are going to make this async in a second here. So we will pass this call inside of this function, and in order for this to work, all we have to do is just say async right here, and now this is going to work. So inside of our response, what we want to do is we want to use set products here. So we are going to get back the data from that API call. So that's going to be the list of products, and we are just going to pass in data. So this empty array will now be what that response was. So we just need to trigger this right now. So inside of use effect, outside of the function, let's go ahead and call that, and this should now make the call and load the data. So again we wrapped this inside of a function, and we made sure that function was async, and then we used a wait to return that promise. We destructured that data, and then we reset the state So now the state is what that response was. So we are going to get one issue here. So if I open up the front end, you are going to notice we don't have any new data here. So we made the call, but the data is not loaded. So if we look into our console, the error that we are getting is a coarse error. So let's go ahead and copy that, and we are going to paste this into our browser. And here you can see course means cross origin resource sharing is a mechanism that allows restricted resources on a web page, which means basically that Django is not allowing our front end from port 3000 to make the call. So we are making a call to our backend, and Django is blocking that call because it doesn't recognize it. So what we need to do is we need to configure Django to allow either this URL or any other URL that we decide, or just to allow any URL. So depending on how you want to configure your API. So we just need to set this up right now, and I will show you how to do that. So we'll just go ahead and look at Django course headers, and I don't know why, but it always gives me an old version of it. So we are going to go into the newest version. So we are going to have to pip install this. We are going to add in course into our headers. So we are going to let our app know about it, and then we are going to go ahead and add some middleware. And finally, we have a few options here. So we are going to go with one of two here. So one is we can allow course origins here. So we can actually go ahead and tell it, hey, these are the URLs that we are okay with allowing to make calls to this website or to our API. What we can also do is we can go ahead and set course origin right here. So course allow all origins, and if we set this to true, this just means that anybody can make calls to our APIs. So basically just saying, hey, whoever wants to make a request, go ahead and allow it. So we will decide on how we configure that in the backend. Later, later when we go to production, I will probably change this because I don't want some kind of bot just going ahead and triggering my API. So but we will configure this, and then I will let you decide how you want to set this up. But I think the safer route is to know exactly what URLs you want to allow, and then configure those. So following this documentation, let's go ahead and start with a pip install. So we'll just take this Django course headers. I will copy this and pasting it here in Django project, Django terminal. So we'll turn that off. So now we are in the backend folder, and I am just going to do pip install, uh, and I will paste that in Django dash course headers, and going to install it here, and I will just turn on my server right now, so I don't have to do this later. So and we will go back and to the backend folder, and so I will close these out, these. Let's go ahead and save uh, that our urls.py views there. We will close those out and let go in backend. We are going to go into settings.py. So what does the documentation tell us to do? Next is in installed app, add this to the proper position. So underneath the REST framework you can add, and we need to add this. So the documentation tells us to put this right here at the top level of our middleware. So middleware also inside that settings.py, and it tells us you need to put this at the top level and explains why. So let's go ahead. So go into our middleware, and so it's also in here settings.py, and paste it that right here, and I will just create some space so we can see that was already here and that was we are adding new. So this is the way we are going to go by one step further. And what we could do, we can use course allowed origins, and but instead of doing that, I am just going to go ahead and use course allow all, uh, just so we don't have any issues here. And at the bottom of my page here, just under the static, I'm just going to go ahead and set this to course allow all origin true. So now Django is on port 8000, and we are just going to say allow any URL like 3000 port, and they make this call. So let's go ahead and see our front end now. The error has gone, and you can see here on front end this data is now from our API. This is no longer from that static folder in the front end. It's still static data, but now we are actually making an API call returning that data, and we are setting the state. So if we go into front end, and we'll go into our home screen, and accidentally opened up my virtual environment here. So that's pretty right there. We are actually making that call, and what we want to do next is actually go into our products page and configure our products. So we want to basically do the same thing for our product page and make this call. So we got the data from this URL and we loaded it in. So actually before we go into the products page, let's go ahead and actually change this URL here. So I want to create a proxy URL to make it to where once we are making this call. So let's say I just use forward slash forward API products going. So what's going to happen is React is going to think we are loading in from port 3000, and so it's going to try that, and port 3000 and doesn't have that API call. So we don't have any data there, so that's why it is showing error. So we need to go back and into package.json. So in package.json we have some thing here right here, and let me find just under the name front end. We going to go ahead and add proxy. So we will just do double quotes, we will have proxy, and I want to add in the URL here. So let's go ahead and grab port 8000, and we'll grab that, and then once we are making that call, it's going to know what port to actually get that from. So we'll do that. Let's add a comma, and I don't think we need that last forward slash right there, and let's see if this works. So let's try that one more time, and we are still loading from local host 3000. So let's see what's going on here. uh, I think I need to restart my server. So we will go into my React server, and let's turn that off, and then let's just do npm start again, and now that should work. So we added the proxy URL and no forward slash at the end, comma there, and now this should work. Yes, so there we go. Now, when we are making that call, React knows to use 8000 as that proxy, and we are we no longer have to hard code our URLs. So this can be an issue. Once we go live, we don't want to have to hard code every single URL. So we could just do forward slash and React and no to look into port 8000 now. So let's go into our products page, and I am going to leave home screen open because we are going to use some of this code. And in our products page, we also want to import use state and use effect. So here, okay, so we have use state, use effect. We can get rid of products here. We can also get rid of that because we are actually going to create the state, and we need to import Axios. So let's just copy and paste this, and so import Axios from Axios, and I can actually grab this, and this entire uh, everything from our state to the end of use effect. So that closes right here, and we are going to copy and paste this into our product screen, and then we just need to make some changes here. So we will save that, and this needs to be product. We will take out the as here, out of both of them we can say fetch uh, product only, not products. Or here also in set products we need set product only. So we need to call actually id, product id here. So that's probably going to be the only thing that's really different, and I just want to make sure we are setting all of this correctly. So to actually set the product, we have match here, and remember we did that before. uh, we can actually set this to backticks, not one but a backtick there. uh, so and we are going to actually go ahead and get the product id. So the routing system in app, uh, remember we are passing in the id here. So once we get here, we can do match dot params, match dot params, and then do id, match params dot id. So we are going into API product, and then we are passing in the id inside the products. So let's see what we get back here. So we go to the products page, and we are now getting data from the backend. So remember, we removed that products.js file from the front end, and every time we click on this, we make an API call to that route. We get the product by ID and we return it. So in the next section or in the next video, what we are going to do is actually create our database, and then we are going to learn how to query the database, how to serialize the data, and return